Hello, welcome to Crafting Your Personal Statement, Insider Secrets from College Admissions Counselors. We appreciate you all spending your Saturday afternoon with us. We'll get started. So just a quick agenda of what we'll talk about. We'll introduce our panelists here and a little bit about quad education, talk about what a personal statement is, and how to choose a topic. We'll have a quick brainstorming exercise to help you get those ideas flowing and get ready for writing your personal statement. We'll talk about how to actually write your personal statement and give some tips and tricks, and then leave some room at the end for a Q&A session. Feel free to start asking your Q&A questions in the little Q&A box that's there, and we will get to those at the end. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Hallie St. Germain, and I am a student success team at Quad Education. I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about what Quad Education is. We're a college admissions consulting company, and our team is comprised of former admissions officers from top universities. Everyone has unique insights into what selective institutions are looking for. They've all worked at our top universities, and we've been supporting students through this process for more than 14 years. We work with students from grades 6 on through 12 through all aspects of the preparation and application process. And we're really excited to talk about how to write a personal statement today. To kick things off, I want to introduce Terry Gilbert. Terry, do you want to take a second to give us a little introduction?
Definitely. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be able to chat with everybody today. My name is Terry Gilbert, and you kind of see my university connections there on the slide. And so I just want to take a moment to just say this is not going to be a scary process for you. Some of you may have had students, or excuse me, older siblings, friends, or something like that has gone through the process. They may have said things, but we're looking forward to kind of talking about it more. And I know one of the reasons why I'm passionate about it is honestly, I didn't really have anyone to guide me when I was writing some of my essays and personal statements when I was undergrad. So I'm happy to pass along the knowledge that I've gained both as a student and then later on as a professional. So thanks, Hallie.
Thanks, Terry. And then we also have Dr. Nick Accrocco with us. Nick, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, good day, everybody. And I know there's people joining us from all over. And I just want to say, I've known Terry for years, and he and I have talked a lot of times about, how do we advise students, how do we recruit students, and all of that good stuff. And I would say this, I remember going through this process of being a nervous wreck. I was in my college counselor's office every day, freaking out. And I'll tell you, and Terry can attest to this too, we get questions every day that begin, I heard that someone said, my friend who went to Selective University said, I read in line, da, 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 da. And all of that to say, what we can do at Quad is we can tell you what it is and what it isn't. There's a lot of times when things are reported out loud, in the media or what have you, or online, or your aunt said, all that stuff, that there's a little bit of truth to it, but it's never quite true. And that's what we're hoping to do today is demystify this, because, regardless of where you want to go to college, regardless of where you want to study, Terry's worked at wonderful institutions. I've worked at wonderful institutions, but if you don't have any interest in those, that's fine. It's totally fine. Awesome. That's great. We just want to reassure you, we want to explain to you what it is and what it isn't. And that's what today's session is all about.
Thanks so much, Nick. All right. So what is a personal statement? Terry, can you talk a little bit about the importance and purpose of personal statements?
Yeah, sure. So the personal statement in just a brief kind of context is just a way for you to share your unique voice. It's a way for you to shine through your application. Everything that the admission officer will review up until that point usually is pretty black and white. They've looked at your grades, they've looked at your test scores, they've read your activities and leadership roles and some of the honors things. It's really kind of black and white. But they don't really tell the admission officer, the reader, who you are. And so that's what this personal statement is designed to do. You know, and by you meaning kind of just who you are, what you've done, your way of thinking, your perspective, your insight, your fears, your worries, your loves, your concerns. You know, it's just really opportunity for you to kind of communicate that through, hopefully through a story or something like that, and just kind of help them understand what you are going to bring to campus, some intangible qualities of what you're going to bring to campus. Oftentimes, I tell students, whether it's a formal relationship or informal relationship, colleges, yes, we're looking to bring great academics and good scholars, but we're also looking to fill our campuses with cool people, quirky people, interesting people, people with stories and a vision and a passion and persistence. These are opportunities for you to be able to communicate that in some way. And when done well, it's something that really shines in your application, has an opportunity to do some really cool things.
Great. Nick, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started shaking my head, and then I was nodding, and then I shook my head no, and I apologize, Terry. That was actually a compliment to him, because I was like, he read my mind. He said exactly what I was going to say. So you look at this, like if you're looking at the slide, right? They know your grades, they know your curriculum, they know your test score, they know your activities. And so I was really impressed that like Terry was literally reading my mind. I was like, yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. So this is your chance to say something about yourself. And we're going to talk more about this, but it's an important part of the application, yes, but the most important thing is your transcript and what you've done for 4 years, your extracurricular record. Like that's years and years of data versus this 650 word essay that I think sometimes takes on, as I've always said, like a mystical quality, like, oh, and we, you know, I think Terry can also say this too. We've had lots of students where we go, you're not necessarily going to get in academically, and then you hear other people go, well, if you write a really good essay, and like, it's important, yes, absolutely important. We're going to give you all the things that we can help you to be successful with, but your academic record is most important, and that's what they're looking at. Your extracurriculums, like all that good stuff. That's all stuff that you did for years, as opposed to this one essay you wrote. So anyway, so all that to say, like, I know it was a little bit kind of weird, but like I was absolutely agreeing with Terry. But when he was saying that, I was like, he absolutely read my mind. That's why I was like, wow, cool. All right, so anyway, yeah, and moving on. Sorry.
That's why we're such good partners.
Yes, that's why we chose the both of you to be here.
Yeah.
All right. So what are personal statements not?
You want to take that, Hallie, or Nick? Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say like and by the way, like, and I'm speaking explicitly to parents, please don't make your child write all the things they did in their essay. We already know that. We know that. And I've had that happen with parents where they go, well, tell them you took these APs, tell them you did this, tell them that, like, we don't need that. We don't. And you know, as I was saying earlier, like it's really, this is the big part of the application, because you have to put the most work, you know, with the essay, but it's not what they're really looking. They're you know, I always say, you're in school, you're applying for more school, so school is going to be the most important. And so that's kind of the thing too. And I'll let Terry, because I know Terry had spoken about this earlier when we were like kind of planning how to do this call. Like it doesn't have to be something that like breaks them down in tears. I think we've had essays that broke us down in tears, and that's you know, about all sorts of stuff, you know, but that's not the goal. Like, so don't feel like you have to, because I've had plenty of students who've come to me going, I'm kind of okay, like my life's kind of good, I don't know what to say to make them cry. You don't have to make them cry. Yeah, but Terry, I know you don't, I know you could probably say more on that.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to, because I think there's some advice out there and counsel, and it's not necessarily bad, that would prompt students to just kind of pull some emotional heartstring, you know, make hysterically laugh, which actually is a really good thing, or cry, or pull in some extreme emotional direction. And I just want to advocate for students to not feel compelled to just relive any type of trauma that they've had. I have it's unfortunate that these happen, but I've read about assault cases in essays. I've read about abusive situations, and far be it from me to tell a student that they shouldn't write about it if it has really shaped them in some significant way. But I would say if you feel as though without telling that story, it's impossible to know you, then okay, figure out a way to be able to say it, but not focus on the event, focus on your evolution as a person and as a scholar. That's what I would say. So just don't feel compelled to do that if you feel like you need to do it.
So Terry, quick question before we move on, but like I was curious about this. So I don't know, I guess 2 years ago, the Common App added a question about how did COVID affect you? And so for everyone who's watching, like, so Terry's on the admission side right now. I'm on the high school side. So I work with high school students. Terry's recruiting students to his university. And what would happen is when that question came out, like I had a lot of students come to me go, what do I write? And I did have students who got sick themselves, or their parents got sick, or a loved one got sick. Sometimes there was death. I mean, that did occur, but there's other kids who went, I had to take care of an older relative. I had to take care of a younger relative, or I had to get a job to help the family. Like, or, and also like, and I'm not saying this flippantly, I'm saying this very sincerely. I just learned how to make sourdough and watch Tiger King all month. That's okay. The pandemic affected everybody in some way, right? And it's not like I had to have like this, horror story and something happened. Not at all. And some people had that, and that's totally legit. Okay, cool. But like some people, just like this knocked us all back, right? Like how did that impact? So I always tell students, I go, say what happened. I'll look at it, I'll make edits, I'll help you, but like what happened? Like how this affect you? But Terry, I'm curious, like as an admissions officer, like how does Purdue look at that? Like when you guys get those answers?
Sure. So I would say that by asking the students to answer a very simple question. How does answering this question move you closer towards college admission? Because you're right. The pandemic, you can't go through 2+ years now. I don't even know if we've officially left the pandemic. Everyone's affected somehow, some way, some very, very much more intimately than others. And I would say if telling that story, because this is a college admission application, right? And so it's not a biographical essay. And so if you are writing something that helps the admission officer understand the context of your past 2.5+ years, or maybe something that will affect you for the rest of your life, absolutely something you can, something that's going to look appealing to an admissions officer. If it's just I don't know whatever the answer would be. I learned how to bike ride or cut my own hair. I don't know what. I'm just making some things up.
Yeah.
Then okay, great, but that doesn't really help me as a reader.
Yeah. So and we can move on after this. So like a question I often say with my colleagues, whoever I'm working with, I go, does it move the admissions needle? How does that like you're saying this like does it move that needle? Like, is there any and I always, when I always reflect back on it, as someone who's worked in the high school side, I go, what was talked about in committee? Like, do they talk about, and what we're gonna have more about what they talk about in committee, but like that's what we're really getting at. Like that's kind of it. But Terry, thank you so much.
Great. So I think in sum, you want to focus on something that tells a lot about you, that will help the college know you better and move the admissions needle in terms of giving them a better context of who you are and how you'll fit into campus. Is that what we're getting at?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's saying we're going to talk all about this. We're going to give you lots of examples, and I think it might surprise a lot of families that a lot of the topics that we really liked and essays that we really liked are about really basic stuff. They're not, I'm the Secretary General of the UN. Like it's not. And I think that might surprise people. But we're going to talk all about how to make you successful and how we can help.
All right. I think either Terry or Nick, one of you the other day said a good essay can cure the sick. It cannot raise the dead. Can you just talk a little bit about what that means?
So this is not a quote from me. This is a quote from one of my favorite mentors in the profession. He's a counselor in Seattle at a private school, and he said this, and it's totally perfect. And it was funny because Terry and I have never worked in admissions together per se. We've worked in consulting together. We've never been in committee together. But I remember he's a college counselor in Seattle now, but he worked at Union College in upstate New York, liberal arts college. And the whole point of this was it explained the essay so well because, again, it's one of those grades, right? It's one of those weird things like, what are they looking for? Is it this? Is it that? And so when I mentioned this quote, when we were playing this call, like Terry, like I said to Terry, go, so you've got a student who's we could take them, maybe we don't need to, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. And they write an awesome essay and you go, okay, like that puts them over the wire, right? So that's kind of thing. But you can have horrible grades and write the most amazing college admissions essay in the entire world, and they're not going to take you. And we've also had, the term that we used at one of my offices was flat. Like, and I always say, like, think about soda, so soda is sweet, tastes good, quenches your thirst, but there's no fizz, right? I've had students write, quote, flat essays, and they got in because their academic house was in order and their extracurriculars were good and all stuff. So all that to say, like, you can write the most amazing college essay in the world, but if all the other stuff's online, it may not matter. Or you could write kind of a essay, a flat essay, it's fine, but it's not going to carry you over. And so that's the thing. So that is my favorite quote. Is one of my favorite quotes in college admissions at all. But it's not me. But so that's why I'm giving credit. But yeah, but it was funny too when Terry and I talked about this. Like Terry absolutely understood what I was like getting at. Like so.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's just a helpful thing to know that the essays are important, but they are not the only important part of your application. All right. How to choose a topic. Terry, do you want to talk a little bit about what students should be looking for when choosing what to write about and picking a prompt?
Sure, definitely. So you want to choose a topic that works best for you. I don't mean to read exactly what it says there, but that's to begin with. So you can, all 7 of the Common App prompts, and I think it's very similar for the Coalition app and even some schools that have their own individual essays, MIT and Georgetown and applications, MIT, Georgetown, and I think some of the Florida schools, like they have very similar essays, but you want to choose something that works for you. There's not a magic prompt. There wasn't a prompt that as we sat around the committee, like, oh my gosh, Stephen answered this prompt. This is something that we're really looking for. Not necessarily the case. But I want you to think of it as a starting point, to try to begin to get your story across. When you think about all the things that we talked about, we've kind of talked about what it's not. We're going to phase into what it is. But those various topics in some general direction helps you get a story across. And so that's kind of what you want to be able to do. So that's really what it is. It's not a magical prompt. Now, obviously that's different when you're talking about supplemental essays. I'm sorry, going back. I didn't read the whole thing. So the prompt you choose doesn't matter. But really what I'm meaning by that is how you answer the prompt. We didn't sit around in committee. We don't sit around in committee and say, Bella didn't answer this prompt correctly, we're going to shove her essay aside. She's not a good fit for us. As a reader, we're looking at content. We're looking to be able to visualize all the things that we said earlier in the earlier slides. And so obviously that's not true when we're talking about supplemental essays. You very much need to answer the prompt. But for the general personal statement, what prompt you choose doesn't really matter. You just need to tell a story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, and this might surprise a lot of families. So our big conference is what's called NACAC, which is National Association of College Admissions Counselors. So it's basically a big nerdy professional development festival for admissions officers and college counselors. And it was several years ago. So the Common App usually has a session, and they said, okay, so we actually asked the member colleges. So who are the member colleges? Member colleges are public and private universities, large, small, all over the United States, different levels of selectivity, different cultures, different locations. But they basically, when we say they're a member colleges, they subscribe to the Common App and they work with the Common App. And the Common App's history, real long story short, about 30, 40 years ago, College A said to College B, you know, what you're making students fill out to apply to Purdue looks a lot like what we're making them apply to Vanderbilt. Why don't we just have one application, we all treat the same? And they absolutely do. So anyway, all that to say, at this session with the member colleges, they said that, you know, the presenters from the Common App, they said, we asked the member colleges, what do you think of the prompts? And literally the answer was, and this is very much to Terry's point, what are the prompts? They don't know. It's a story about you. We're going to talk all about that a lot more. So that might blow families' mind now. But here's the thing, as Terry alluded to it as well, the supplemental essays, when they ask, why do you want to go to this college? Whatever college it is, those are very different. And I'd also say, like, you want to send your Common App personal statement, which is basically the college essay. You want to send that to every college, whatever you're applying to. Same college gets the same essay. Don't, like, I'm going to write a different essay for this college. No. Just same as the supplemental essays is when the college goes, but why do you like us? The Common App essay, they honestly don't care. They just want to know about you. And it sounds very unsatisfying, but like, yeah, that's kind of it. So.
Awesome. Sorry, Terry, go ahead.
No, just sorry. Just probably maybe taking over a little bit of your role, Ellie, but Nick reminded me, if I say terms or we say terms with which you're not familiar, like I just threw a Common App out there, feel free to use the Q&A function to be able to say, hey, what do you mean? And if we don't catch it now, or we'll be able to come back to it at the end of the presentation. So I apologize if I've thrown around terms and not realize it that people may not be familiar with.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. Definitely feel free to use the Q&A for questions about terms or let us know what you're thinking about now so we can make sure we get to it later and you don't forget. All right. So when choosing a prompt, what are some things that you should not do? And I guess this more pertains to when you start coming up with a topic for the prompt. Nick, do you want to start here?
Yeah, so I'll say, you know, especially because like it's our first bullet point, and this is something as a Texas and college counselor. So University of Texas, you know, because Texas of course has their own app. They're not going to the Common App, which is funny, but for years they've had their own app, Apply Texas. They had one of the prompts which was talk about someone who had an influence on you and describe that influence. And I will say from the high school side, and especially working with students, I don't like that question. I feel like they're setting the students kind of up to, like, they're not trying to, but they're setting students up to like talk about how wonderful it is. And what I found most of the time, it was grandma or grandpa. And I'm saying all different cultures, all different backgrounds, all different, you know, affluence levels, like all didn't matter. It's always, oh, write about your grandma. That'll be so sweet. They'll like that. Like, and what we would hear is all these wonderful things about grandma. And, you know, I'm sure Terry's seen these essays. I'm absolutely sure. And you go, well, this grandma sounds awesome, but what about you? It's the influence. And I always felt like it was kind of unfair question, because I felt like students heard, oh, tell me about someone who was awesome in your life and how awesome they were. And that's not the question. And so it was kind of, again, we're dealing with teenagers, like they're not nuanced like that. And I don't think admissions officers even necessarily thought that. But yeah, and I've seen that topic done well, but it's not how awesome you are. The other thing, and this goes for academics, it goes for extracurriculars. Doesn't matter what class, doesn't matter what you're doing extracurricularly. Oh my goodness, I was suffering and struggling in this, and I worked so hard, and I was successful, and it worked. That's not saying anything. You can actually write about that topic. It's totally a fine topic, but it's not, oh, I was struggling and then I worked so hard and then I was successful. Like that doesn't move the needle. But we just kind of go, okay, how did you struggle? Okay, so maybe I wanted to be like, successful in sports. I want to be recruited to play this sport. Okay, so every day I got up at 5 a.m. I'm not trying to like put like these like Herculean tasks on teenagers, but like I woke up every day and I worked hard and all this stuff, and like and this is what I did. And I had my playlist on my phone and I worked hard and I did this, and that's a way more interesting essay than I struggled and I worked hard and then I was successful. So I'm sure Terry has seen both of those.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm sorry if I don't know if you wanted me to jump in, but I just did. But
go ahead.
So I would say this. This kind of maybe is the common thread through some of these things. You do kind of have to figure out, yes, your story, but it's your story, meaning like how does it make you unique? Oftentimes, I've worked at universities with very well-established STEM and computer science programs. I cannot, if I had just a tenth of a cent to be able that for every robotics and Legos essay and tinkering essay that I've read, I probably would be able to not have to worry about retirement. To be quite honest with you, you really kind of do have to say, okay, how many of these stories, just as Nick said, are probably out there? Something bad happened. It was horrible, whatever it was horrible, and now something good happened. That doesn't really help you set you apart from the crowd a little bit. So that's really, I guess, the only thing that I would say to that. And I'll just finish out the other two there if you don't mind. So you want to be careful about demonstrating your privilege. And I mean this in a way that, so if you if you went traveling somewhere and you had an amazing experience, you don't necessarily need to talk about that amazing experience in that location, or you don't need to talk about the location, just talk about the amazing experience. Or it's almost cliche, but talking about writing about how you worked in a soup kitchen and it changed your perspective. And not saying that it didn't, and not saying that's not a good thing, because I think oftentimes, that character building happens when you're able to see some of your privilege, but at the same time, it becomes a little bit cliche. So just want you to be kind of careful with that, and not write. This is kind of I guess again an underlying current to all of these things. Not writing what you believe admission officers want to hear. They don't necessarily want to read you that you talked about how you've traveled, you're a well-traveled person, or your heart for people. Those things can be demonstrated in a way and written about in a way that you don't have to just come out and say it. If that makes sense. I don't know, perhaps someone can be a little bit more eloquent when describing those things.
Maybe show your love for people and traveling by your extracurriculars, your experience. You can talk about how it's affected you and changed you. You can weave it into your story, but not make it the focus.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so quick housekeeping thing. We've got a couple of questions in the Q&A. We will answer all your questions at the end. Promise you. I've seen a lot of great questions. We will answer all of those. But what I would also say would demonstrate your privilege, and I think Terry would back me up on this. So the first part of your application on the Common App is called Part 1. And part one is just name, address, phone number, who your parents, who's this. And I have worked with students who were bajillionaires. I worked with students who are homeless. I worked with students who have 7 siblings. I worked with students who have no siblings. I worked with students who are adopted. I have anything you can imagine. So part one, and I always tell them, I go, we are who we are. You can't change your family or what your parents do or what if they went to college or not. But the fact is, and I think Terry would back me up on this, like that gives you a lens in how to look at this file. So if you go, okay, so it's a single parent home, and parent one doesn't make a lot, like they're in a profession where they're not making a lot of money. I'm not really upset they're not in the spring musical. I'm looking, see, it gives you a lens. And so the thing about and the other thing too is like, there's this weird myth. Like if I had to give like the top 10 college counseling myths, one of them is like, oh, I have to do community service. What if that's not your thing? What if you're just athletic or artistic or scientific, or you want to do a job or what? Fine, you don't have to do community service. Like community service is wonderful, of course, but like you don't quote have to do it. And what I think, one of the things we used to always say when I was an admissions officer myself was like, know your biases. And I go, okay, wait, so you're helping the homeless, the poor, the elder, whatever, kids, aren't those in your own backyard? Like wherever you're watching us from right now, like there are causes you can do in your own backyard. You don't get extra points if you jump on a plane and go somewhere else. And I think a lot of families think that, and it's not. And I kind of think it's awesome when a kid's like, I saw this need in my own community, blah blah blah, and I did decide I like that. I think that that's cool. Like why you're not getting a point for that. And the last thing I'll say about demonstrate your privilege. I had a student years ago who she talked about, she went cliff diving in Capri, Italy, which is a pretty elite resort kind of thing. And she said, I jumped off the cliff, and that's how much of a risk taker I am. And I just rolled my eyes. Honestly, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I mean, I'm being very honest. Like that was the opinion. And I honestly think if I took that to committee, and committee is full of all sorts of different personalities, but I think we go like, oh, she's such a risk taker because she jumped off a cliff in Capri. No one's thinking that. No one's thinking that. Like, so anyway, yeah.
All right.
Real seeker maybe, but not risk taker.
Yeah.
I think let's quickly touch on talking about illness and injury. And I think when we had talked previously, the ACL injury is one that sounds like it's very cliche and used constantly. But yeah, Terry, you want to give us a little more context?
Yeah, sure. I mean, those are definitely unfortunate, but it's not unique. It's respectfully, it's not catastrophic that you miss the championship game of your junior year. Don't get me wrong, it's still an important thing, but that does nothing. Going back to my question, how does this move you closer to being admitted? And it doesn't, to be honest with you. So if you want to use it as a very brief allusion to a much greater context, like you tore your ACL, and then you were able to, through that process, you were able to understand the disparities in the public health system, and that has then driven you to be a public health advocate, or now we're going somewhere, right? But that it happened, that's not going to move the needle, as we said earlier.
A million percent. And I got to tell you, like, Terry's kind of alluding to something I'm thinking about. Like, pretty much all of us, one way or the other, someone in our life who we loved and cared about got sick or passed away. That happens. And we have a lot of, oh my goodness, like this person who I cared about, like, got sick, and then but it made me decide I want to be a doctor. But it's really interesting when it's like a specialty too. It's like, my uncle had a foot issue and I want to be an orthopedist. It's like, cool, like that's what Terry's going. What do you want to do? So the thing is too, and we've talked about this a lot in our professional conferences. I don't ask kids anymore, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to major in? I ask, what problems do you want to solve? Like, what do you look at and you go, this is an issue, I want to fix this. And so sometimes that can be, you know, sort of like initiated by someone I care about had this issue and I want to make it better. That's cool. That's super cool. As opposed to, and again, as Terry was saying, because like I don't want to minimize it. I mean, these are real teenage experiences, but like I tore my ACL and I had to lose I didn't go to the championship game. I had to start the season and I worked really hard and now I'm back. Like, that's not as interesting. Like we want to, what are you doing next? Like what's the next thing?
So using it as a jumping off point to
Correct.
a greater story about yourself sounds
Yes.
like the way to go there if it's something that you want to talk about. But
Absolutely.
talking about it for the feeling, making the admissions officer feel feelings is not what we want to be doing there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. All right, so we're going to jump into an exercise now. So this is the takeaway from what is the personal statement. You want to be yourself. You want to show who you are and why you would be a great asset to a school, a university, and give them an inside look at who you are beyond the numbers that are provided in the rest of your application. So now we're going to jump into an exercise for brainstorming purposes. If you have already started your personal statement, if you've already written it, don't discount this. I think it can be really helpful to help you go back and look at what you've written. Maybe you want to change your mind, weave in new information through here. Terry, these are some exercises that you use really regularly with your clients. Can you just give us a little overview?
Definitely. So one of the first things I say, this is very simple. First step is get a notebook. Get a notebook, a composition book, whatever it is, a collection of things, because I want you as a student to always collect thoughts, ideas, notes, memories, and jot them down. And sometimes it's hard to just kind of sit down and write a personal statement. So here are ways to start filling that notebook. And are we actually asking to do this?
Yes, sorry, we are.
Oh, okay, all right, cool.
So
That's
everyone,
good. That's good.
Grab your pencil and paper that you brought with you, and we'll go through kind of what we have here. What Terry asked his students to do is a little bit more than what we have right here, but for the sake of time, you list 5 details from your life, etc. That would be great.
Right.
Or you can dive a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So as we said earlier, all of these different prompts, you really just kind of want to get to telling your story. But some of you may say, you know, what is my story? Maybe I don't have a story. Well, I'm here to tell you, you do. You definitely have a story. You have some unique, some amazing qualities with which to write about. So now we have to figure kind of where those, you know, what those are and where they go. So first thing, this is something I want everyone to do that's on the webinar right now. Just take 5 things from 5 details from your life, just random things. They can be very small to some random part of you are. So for example, you know, in 7th grade, I made in 7th grade, my favorite class was woodworking. I don't know. Or no one could beat me in Mario Kart. I challenge you on that personally, because I'm pretty good at Mario Kart, but no one can beat me in Mario Kart. Or, every time my mom went on a business trip, she brought me home a puzzle, and I look forward to that moment when I can open up that puzzle. I know it's kind of some random things, but just write down some details from your life that you think it's interesting or kind of just describes you. Some random part of kind of who you are. So go ahead and take just a few minutes to do that.
And we'd also love for you to pop your ideas and details into the chat, share with other people so we can see kind of how other people are thinking. And Nick and Terry and I will kind of be monitoring that and pick out ones that are interesting or want to hear more about and talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, that's good. It's like a really big group project. You can feed off of one another by using the chat room.
I'll say, like, I know there's parents who are watching us right now going, oh, well, they should write about this, write about this. And there's probably students going like, I don't know what to write about. I don't know this, but here's the thing. Like I always say, there's 3 types of students that come to Terry and myself as a consultant. The first one has a draft of an essay. They wrote it for English class or whatever. They like it, they hate it. I hate it, the worst thing ever. And I go, but this is actually really good. We can work with it, right? So that's the first type. The second type go, we got a couple ideas. I'm thinking about writing about this or that or both. And Terry and I look at it and we go, no, that can work. And then we have students who go, I have no idea. And then that's kind of why this exercise is really helpful. Like it can be a bus. Like I had a girl who literally wrote her essay about, I have a keychain in my backpack I've had since I was in 8th grade, and this is why it's so important to me. And you go, she's writing about a keychain in her backpack, and it was brilliant. We loved it. And Terry and I are going to talk about like favorite examples we have later to kind of give you some ideas. But what you'll learn is it's not, oh, this horrible thing happened and this was terrible and I can't believe it. We've had those essays and those worked. Or, I'm really, really successful at age 16 and blah, blah, blah. Like you're going to find like our favorite essays are kind of a keychain on a backpack. But do this exercise, students, honestly, like seriously, like just what's about you, Look, someone wrote in the chat, I hate watermelon. Run with that. I hate watermelon. Why do you hate watermelon? What's wrong with it? Go with it. Like that's it,
All
Harry,
right.
I'd love to hear an essay on never drinking coffee. It's an
I
impressive.
never drank coffee.
It is like the perfect icebreaker, because everybody just looks at me with wide eyes like, what? How do you function? I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't tell you. I just get up and go. All right, we'll go to the next thing. Two things for each of the following. 2 things that completely drive you crazy. 2 things that 2 places that make you feel really happy. And I'm not just talking about like you smile when you go there, but like you feel really happy, just amazingly happy. One of those places for me is the kitchen. I love to cook. I love being around food. I love being around food that's not like from America, like different cultures, food and things like that. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Got to share one of those events with Nick actually a while ago. And 2 things that are just very important to you, that maybe, I don't know, maybe they're not even remotely related to your academic aspirations, but 2 things for each of those things. And what we're getting with this is, to tell you the idea behind it, is cultivating moments and memories and stories and things within you internally that are natural to you, that you may not readily think of, that really key on to, again, your story, who you are, and who you have the potential to be, with further growth and further development that can happen on our campuses. And so that's what we're getting to is being able to cultivate moments, cultivate stories, have you bring to the forefront of your mind, out of your subconscious and into your conscious, of all the things that make you uniquely you, that go beyond just, again, the black and white words that you will see on a transcript or an activities list. And can we read through some of these? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just want to say like what Terry's kind of getting at is like, they just want a story. And it could be a stupid story. Like it could be like a nothing, it could be like story. Like it's not some, amazingly, you're not trying to move them to tears. You're not trying to make them laugh. You're not trying to quote stand out, which I heard all the time. Like, and I know that's in the lexicon and in the ether a lot. But what are you about? I mean, like, girl wrote about a keychain in her backpack. We loved it.
Someone placed here in the chat. I used to learn random psychology tricks off of YouTube to try on my friends during recess and learn deep facts about them. So I can tell you, like, if we were working together, I would take that and say, so what did you learn about the human condition?
Mm-hmm.
Do that. What did you learn about people? What did you learn about yourself?
Yes.
And how does that affect who you are in the future? Like that to me, like again, just a very random thing, and you start off with a very funny anecdote, and now you can create a 1,000-word essay on that if you wanted to. But then again, as an admission reader, I'm like, oh my gosh, this person took this moment, but they learned more about themselves.
Yeah, someone else has posted, me and my best friend share songs every day. What? Yes. Why? Why did that song move you? Why? What with it? What did it just make you feel good? Did it make you feel like okay when you were down? Did it have a political message? Like what songs did you send? You know, I installed math balls born video games. Awesome. Why? Like tell us more about that. What do you want to learn next? Like, yes, absolutely. These are all like, and you know what I love about the chat is like all of these are like really basic stuff. I look forward to walking the park with my friends. Yes, why? That's your solace, right? That's what I feel, I guess. You know, I'm like, you're chilling, you're decompressing. Like, what do you talk about? Like, what do you do? Is there a tree you really like? Stupid stuff like that. Honestly, we love that stuff. Yes, absolutely. This is great.
I think this stuff tells so much more about who you are as a person than trying to think about the biggest event that happened in your life that
correct
is not necessarily that unique.
Man, I'm getting excited. I'm already ready to start helping people with some essays.
Really cool. By the way, everybody who's responded, like, and I think Terry feels the same way. I'm going, yes, that's perfect. Yes, let's go with that.
Yeah, these are all fantastic. I think for the sake of time, let's move on to the next thing quickly, and then we'll go to the second part of this exercise.
Okay.
So list 5 things that came to mind when you complete the sentence. I love blank, or I know a lot about blank. And I think some of you have already started to do that, but you want to pop some in the chat. I think it goes a little bit about things that are important to you or places that make you feel happy as well.
So for me to feel the silence, I'm not good with your group communication. Sometimes you're supposed to let silence lie. So for me, it's gonna sound random. I love skincare. Like no one would probably guess that about me. Like when thinking about that, especially because I'm an athlete. You know, I don't know athletes and kind of traditional norms, I guess. But I like research skincare, and like I know all about skincare, and I spend way too much money on skincare.
That also sounds like it would be a great essay topic.
Yeah, so someone, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say real quick, like what Terry's alluded to, it can be something just random like that. It can. That's a like if Terry was applying and he was like, I love skincare, people know and be like, this is what I like. That's a winner. That works.
I love to help others. I know a lot about pandas. If that's the opening line, I'm interested. I'm intrigued as a reader. Like, okay, so where is this going? I know a lot about pandas. I love music, sports, silence. I love silence. That's interesting. Critical thinking problems. So I would say, real quick,
let's
question.
Read some of these aloud. I'm realizing they're coming to the 3 of us, but not everyone else is seeing them. So we got a question. Would it be all right for me to talk about something basic like basketball? I don't play on the school team, but like to play with my friends for fun. Is that too simple?
Not at all.
So I think no, it's not. But I would say kind of going back to the same thing, and even some of these other things, I would say still think about it in a way is, so how is this going to move me closer to being admitted? I'm with you. I love basketball. I'm a local basketball coach here in my local area. I'm all into it, high school, professional, college, everything. But writing about it in any of these things, especially I know a lot about pandas, writing about it in a way that moves you closer to being admitted. You kind of have to figure what that is. So kind of going back to one of our previous points, using it as a starting off point, but taking the essay in a direction that makes the admission officers understand kind of like how you're going to contribute to their campus in one way or the other.
Well, and here's the thing, I want everyone to like understand, like as consultants, here's what we do. So you go, all right, I want to write about playing basketball with my friends. I'm not on a team, but it's fun. Okay. So what I think Terry and I would both do is go, okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but like you want to have a hook. So the hook is the first sentence that gives them a little tease. Like think of any show you've ever watched, you know, news or whatever else. They always go, and stay tuned because when we come back, blah, blah. So you're kind of doing that, right? So here's how I, like, if that was my student, I'd go, okay, so it's Thursday at 4 o'clock. I'm driving to the public park to play basketball with my friends. And we have a tradition that we always, whatever, we dance to a song, we get food from a place we like, whatever. I've got my blue Gatorade bottle. I got my tunes. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get revved up and play with my friends, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to play. And like, oh, that totally could work, totally. But you're giving them a piece of that life, you know, and it doesn't. But that I think it's always approach. Now here's the thing, like in the chat too, someone said, "I love contortion." That's a fun essay. How did you get in the contortion? How did you do that? What are you doing? Do you do it yourself? Did someone else do it? Like that's fun. It's absolutely fun.
All right. So in the interest of time, we're going to move on to the next piece of the exercise. And we're not going to have time to fully do this, but something that Terry does with his students is have them write a few bullet points about, or a few sentences about how they would approach each topic that the Common App gives out for the essays. So we put them up here. Take a second to look at them. If anything pops into mind, feel free to pop it into the chat, write it down on your piece of paper. We won't spend too long on this, but Terry, maybe while students are doing that, we can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, definitely. So the thought is, and it's almost a great transition from these other collections of brainstorming exercises into this one. So now imagine you have, and as Hallie mentioned, there are a couple other exercises that we would do, but you may have 2 or 3 or 4 even pages of all these ideas and thoughts. So now the second step then is these are all of the Common App prompts, and I think there's a 7th, write about whatever you want. But again, the prompt doesn't necessarily matter, but your story matters, right? And so you've got all of these items here, all these things you've thought of from your past, and things that are meaningful to you. And so what you want to do, what I suggest students do, is for every prompt there, just consider 2 or 3 or 4 different bullet points on how you would address that prompt to be able to communicate your story. Okay, so for each of those each one of these prompts, in theory, you'll be able to have 2, 3, 4 different points and almost an outline, a very, very high level outline of how you would address each one of those prompts. And then between you or a professional, someone who do you connect with, maybe one of us here at Quad, you would be able to kind of flesh out, okay, based upon all these different directions, here are the 2, 3, maybe 1 essay that makes the best sense. So now let's move forward with beginning our drafts. So that's kind of the thought. And this does take some time, right? Because now you have to filter through all the different brainstorming exercises that you've done previous to this to actually like put forth a plan in answering one of these essays. But it's a really good opportunity. So you don't have to say, okay, think, oh my gosh, am I going to do prompt 2 or prompt 4 or prompt 1? No, write out all of them and then decide based upon all the things that you have kind of like written for each one of the prompts.
Does anyone have any questions here before we move on to the next topic?
So one thing I would like to tell everybody, because and Terry, I'm gonna give you a huge compliment. I've been doing this for the better part of 20 years. And about a week ago, Terry told me I have every student give a couple of bullet points for every one of these prompts. And the thing is, and I'm telling you as a consultant, what we would do is Terry or I would look at those and go, yeah, that we don't like number 1, we don't like number 2, we don't like number 3, but 5 is really interesting. And if you also notice, the last prompt, number 7, is always topic of your choice. And again, they don't care which prompt you pick. They have no idea. Like that does not register. When we talk about specific essays, I know that's in the Q&A, and again, we're going to come to all that. But when Terry said that, that is one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard. I'm like, huh, that's a really good idea. Because again, Terry and I will look at it and go, yeah, not that one, not that one, not that one, but maybe this one. Like, wouldn't that be something? Like, is that it? Oh, and in chat we have the famous, is it better to get the A in the class or the B? We'll talk about that. We'll answer all your questions. I want you to know that. But I want to tell you, that was a really good, that's a brilliant strategy that Terry came up with. And I went, huh, that makes a lot of sense. You could do that. So all that to say, you look at all these, you're going to give us ideas. We're going to tell you, yeah, go with this one. And here's how we'll do it. So I'm not sure how Terry's process works, but like, I'm never going to tell a student, write this, write this, write this. I'm going to ask questions. What it feel like? And I always think about the 5 senses. What it feel like? What it tastes like? What it's, so when you're getting up and you're practically, we talk about the basketball, you're getting up. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you do? Like that kind of, that's what we're going for. So basically, like, give us some seeds and we'll plant fields.
Awesome. So one question that I'm seeing that pertains to essay topics specifically in our chat is someone took part in a community service project that broke a Guinness World Record, opened their eyes to new perspectives. Would that come across as cliche? I think I am immediately interested in that Guinness World Record. Nick, do you have thoughts there?
So then that's the thing is, like, if you did something like you did what you did, put it down. Like, absolutely, they're going to look at that. And it's so what I always tell when I'm working with students, consulting, I go, here's how the ratings are kind of calculated. We don't really know what they are because some offices, 1 is the best, 6 is the worst. Other offices, 9 is the best, 1 is the worst. There's pluses and minuses. But when you get to the extracurricular stuff, like a lot of it, I would say most students are doing typical high school stuff, and that's fine. And very, very many of them get admitted. But when you go, oh, I did something that got in the Guinness Book World Records, you kind of go, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, like you get that, wow, okay, cool. Yes, that's great. So put it down. But it's a tricky thing because it is, at the end of the, I've always said, like I remember one of my deans said, we strive for a fairness we never can quite obtain. And so we're trying to like evaluate all these students from different backgrounds and different states and different countries and interests and all this stuff. We're trying to do that, but like at the end of the day, it's kind of subjective. Like, put down what you did, So one of my mentors in this profession, she always, whenever I ask her, I go, how would a student say this? How would a student put this down? How would they put that down? And she goes, just put down who they feel like they are, like, and just, that's it. Let the chips fall where they may. Like, that's it.
All right. I hope everyone feels like they got some good brainstorming in, or at least some ideas on how to brainstorm, and begin picking a topic here and begin starting. We're going to move on to just a little bit more about writing your personal statement, what shape it should take, what you're being graded on, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&As in just a little bit. How do you get started? So once you've done these exercises, have a topic in mind, what then? Terry, you want to take this?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, I was looking at the chat and getting ready to answer a question. Fine. So yeah, really how you want to get started. You kind of want to take, obviously, like all the things that we've talked about, right, and kind of help kind of figure out what that narrative is. So once you have figured out, you've done your brainstorming, you select your prompt, you've kind of got your bullet point, so to speak. You really want to kind of find out what that narrative is going to be. One of the things that I tell students, you don't really need to self-censor, right? Like, don't think that this is going to be a little too quirky, or it'll even be too bland. We kind of talked about the basketball narrative. Don't feel as though you have to kind of censor yourself in some way. So really kind of want to show kind of you. If you have like literally no clue how to get started once you've even selected the prompt. Maybe once maybe you guys select the prompt, you just kind of have a bunch of ideas. Just open up a Word doc or a Google Doc and just start to type. Just start whatever is coming to your mind. Just start to type. That's kind of like if you've ever written an essay or we've got, I know at least one published author in our midst. Sometimes you just kind of have to begin writing. Just start to put pencil to paper or I don't know what the electronic version of pencil to paper is, but you kind of just start to have to put words there to kind of get started, and being okay with yourself that it may take time. This is one of the reasons why I always suggest the best time to start on your personal statement is now, June. You don't want to begin in September when you're really under the deadline to be able to get things submitted. So start early and just start getting some things to paper. Nick, anything you want to add there?
Absolutely. Like I would say, like, I have had countless students take a draft of an essay to me and go, I hate this, Dr. A, blah, blah, blah. And I go, no, this is good. We can work with this. We can use this topic. Here's how to do it better. Or no, actually what you wrote is pretty good. Like you could do that too. And so the other thing too is I would say, like, especially with my consulting students, like I say to every family I work with, I go, and many families find us, around this time, right before senior year. There's a lot of families in the consulting world just when they find us. And I go, let's get everything done now. So the Common App, if you, again, topic 7, topic of your choice, as Terry and I have talked about, really doesn't matter what topic you pick. Once we know that, University A has these supplemental essays, I know there's questions about that, we'll talk about it, but anyway, once we know that, then you can write up like students and parents, you can get all this done before senior year starts. You can do that. And I'll say very plainly, when a lot of my like private students, I tell them this, and I go, hey, you want to, oh yeah, we're gonna get done. Oh yeah, we don't want to wait. And they never do it. It's teenagers, it's families. Like, I get that. And like, it's like life happens, you go on vacation or whatever, but you can get all this stuff done and you'll be like so much more stress-free when you start high school as a senior, not start high school, but begin senior year, like that's what you'll do. So yeah.
The time is now. All right, let's talk about some tips and tricks. Nick, do you want to start off here?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple examples. So, Mark and Terry and I are going to talk about a lot of our kind of favorite essays, but like what we used to say at one of my schools, like, what is so you? What is so you? So I had a student and she just had these like sneakers, and and frankly, and parents, please pay attention to this. Her parents were way too involved in her essay. And I go, you're so interesting and spunky and fun. Like, why are your essays so wooden? And she went, you don't understand, my dad's like all over him. And I went, stop it. And I called him up and I said, stop it. Frankly, I was like her sneakers take her everywhere. So where do her sneakers take her? Like what places does she go? I had another student who smiled a lot, like kind of all the time. It was a little creepy, but it was also very sweet. It was also very nice. And she wrote this one essay about like her grandfather dying and all this stuff. And I was like, I looked at her and I'm looking like, your brand is your smile. Your smile is like, that's you. That's all I think about when I think of you. And I said, okay, so I kind of did the same thing with the sneakers essay. I go, okay, where's your smile take you? So we talked about, I'm getting an award at school and I'm smiling because I'm proud of myself. Awesome. I'm at my little brother's Little League game and I'm smiling because I'm proud of him. Awesome. I'm at my grandfather's funeral. So that was her original topic. And I said, but I'm smiling not because he's gone, of course, but because of the life he led and how much he had an impact on me. You go, that's awesome. So that's the thing. So one of the things I do with pretty much literally all my students, Johns Hopkins University and Connecticut College have essays that work. And these are literal students who they admitted. They also give you admissions officer comments, totally free. You don't have to apply at Johns Hopkins, don't have to apply at Connecticut College. You have no interest in them, totally fine. It gives you an idea of what they're looking for, like, and it's totally free. And they tell you, we like this essay because, and if you read them, some of them are funny, some of them are sad, some of them are inspirational, some of them are weird. Like there's all different flavors, but like they're saying, we like this because. So you can absolutely do that.
Awesome. I think one more thing you have on here is don't use a $25 word when a 25-cent word will do.
Yeah, so I would say, like,
I'm sorry.
If I have to look it up, that worries me. Like, and I'm like, what does that word mean? Terry, I think you'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, I boil it down very simple. Say you're trying too hard.
Yep.
Don't try to impress us with a thesaurus. And in fact, at CMU, we at Carnegie Mellon, we used to write in our comments, this kid is using a thesaurus.
Yep.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah, and I always think about this. This sounds really weird. So Nirvana is my favorite band, and there's a famous recording of a live recording where they're doing like a practice, and Kurt Cobain yells at his band members, "You're trying too hard." I've always felt that way about the essay. Like you don't need the Terry and I are highly educated. We should not be looking up what your word means. Like that doesn't get you extra points. Like we kind of go, what? They just say it. One time I remember, like, I had an essay where we used to have a why Vanderbilt essay. It was a supplemental, and we will talk about that. But I was conversing with students in camp. Conversing. Have you ever said that? Have you ever said I'm conversing? I'm conversing. I'm talking. It was weird, and so like that. I know what conversing means, but I was like, that's just is this Bridget? I was weird. It was so strange. Like, so.
You wouldn't say it in your day-to-day life. Don't
Correct.
put it in your essay.
Correct. Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we move on from this slide?
No, that's kind of it. Yeah. All right.
All right. I think this is the big question, that the secret sauce. How am I being graded? Terry, you want to take this? Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry. Yeah, Terry, you go ahead.
Okay, sure. So first and foremost, again, your academics, that's going to be what we're looking at, and so it's kind of going to give us a bit. We're going to look at this through a lens there, but it's not. I think there may be some level of misconception, although you definitely should run this through whatever grammar and spelling check that you're using. But we're not going through with a red pen to be able to say, oh my gosh, there's a comma splice there. This person, there's no way. Or did they really just use a colon in that instance? That's crazy. We could never admit that person. No, we're not doing that. You have to understand. So the institution for which I work, we had nearly 70,000 applications this year. We do not have time to read or go through. We do have time to read. I'm sorry, we don't have time to look at grammar like that. It's just not the case. So again, how you're being graded, your voice, your story, and not that we agree with your story or we can connect with your story, but what does this story say about you as a person and as a potential student? And how might you connect with our mission? And that's not anything that you can necessarily change. I mean, that's not something you can affect. You can't know that. But I mean, it's a different conversation for a different time. But that's where finding the fit and curating your college list really comes into play. But so, for example, if I'll use one, many people are probably familiar with the quirkiness of a UChicago essay and UChicago application. Oftentimes, they are able to draw that out. And I haven't worked for UChicago, but I've talked to a lot of people who have worked for them. They're able to draw that out through essays and through some of the other things in the application. So that's kind of how you're being like judged or how that's been evaluated. So again, grammar, punctuation, those things, not really important. Things like leadership, compassion, friendliness, evolution, right? Like those things that's going to be what college they want to kind of draw out. You also hear that magic word grit. Whatever grit means, it means different places, but you'll be kind of like gauged on that if your story is about grit.
Terry, what are your thoughts here? Or sorry, Nick, what are your thoughts?
No, I would absolutely agree with everything Terry said. And I would say, like, so when I wasn't, so part of what I was thinking about in answering this like kind of topic was, when I was in high school, I really thought that the essay had all these different like grades you have to do. And when I was at Vanderbilt, we did what's called reader training. And reader training doesn't matter if you're a brand new officer, just graduated, want to go tell everyone how wonderful your school is, or if you've been at Vanderbilt for 20 years, everybody goes to reader training, everybody. And most offices do this. At the UC system in California, they call it leveling. It's just, what do we agree about? What are we thinking about? And I'll say a couple of things here. So like when that happened, when I got behind the scenes, quote unquote, and we went through reader training, we talked constantly about, here's the school's grading system, here's their curriculum, here's what that means, here's what that means in that context. And then when we got to the essay, and I'm not kidding, and this might shock people who are watching this, when we got to the essay, I swear to God, they said, oh yeah, with the essay, whatever you think. And I went, what? And I rose my hand. I was like, what? I said, is there anything? They're like, no, what do you think? And I go, and that's a weird exercise. So if you're wondering, like, where are they looking for? What would you want to see? What do you want them to talk about? Like that's a really good thing. Well, I'd like them to say, because the admission, people think a lot of times like admissions officers like are really like uptight and fault finding and very powerful. And Terry will attest they're not. It's, so Terry could go to committee and go like, I love this student, and his director can go, nah. And Terry like, but I love him. Yeah. And his director would go, no, that's happened to me. It's happened to Terry. Happens. And there's other like, I don't really like this kid. Oh, we're gonna take him. That happens too. So that's the thing. So the other thing too is like, I would say like each school is different. And one of the things I've really enjoyed about being a consultant is everybody in this profession pretty much has worked at other places and pretty selected places. So if you want to ask me a question that's very specific to, one of the colleges or one of the institutions I worked for, and one of the institutions Terry worked for, like he's going to have an answer. But like I have a pretty good idea how Purdue works, but Terry knows it better. And I can call Terry and go, how does Purdue work? And he'll tell me that. Just like you call me up and say, how does Vanderbilt work? And like the same thing. So that's the thing. Every school is different. The way you write essays for one school is different than the other. Your Common App stays the same. Personal statement, Common App essay, that stays the same. But when College A says, why us? There's a different way to answer that than the other school. And that's what we can help you with, Claude.
So I think there you're talking about supplemental essays, right? With the
Yep.
YS.
Yep.
I think we did get a question about that that we'll cover in just a second. I think we are at the Q&A section. So
okay, and I want everyone who's watching us to like, we'll answer all your questions. Okay, so how should we do this? Should we go with the chat?
I think I'm going to go through and I'll read out the questions as I see them. And so we have about 10, 15-ish minutes for this. So we'll get to as many as we can within that time.
Okay.
So one question that I remember specifically about the supplemental essays seeing is, can you just talk briefly, remind us what the difference between the personal statement and a supplemental essay is?
So and Terry, please jump in after this. Like the biggest thing I would say, and I think it kind of like tells the whole story. When I was at Penn, my dean used to always say, because a lot of people are applying to Penn, and he goes, do they want to come to our community because of what we have to offer, or they're, quote, applying because it's Penn? And that could be any college. Don't like, I remember I had a private student, there was actually, about a year ago. She really wanted to go to Vassar, wonderful school, upstate New York, awesome, great, all stuff. And she said, I really want to join the student newspaper. And I go, there's a name for the student newspaper, name it. And one of my dearest friends works at Rice, and she's went to Rice and Houston, born and raised, and been in admissions the entire year for literally decades. And she would say, it's the easiest question we ask, and they always get it wrong. Why are you applying here? Aside from the name, aside from what U.S. News and World Report said, why are you applying here? Show us the fit. And I always say to my students, show them that you know them.
Yep, 100%. Yep, 100%. You got, so the personal statement is personal. The supplemental statement is about connecting you, your activities, your desires, your dreams to specifically to the university and the institution. So, and that goes beyond rankings, that goes beyond just throwing in Dr. So-and-so who does this. I mean, you really kind of have to do some research. You should not be able to enter a supplemental essay. And I won't get too deep in the weeds here, Ali, I promise. But you should not start writing a supplemental essay without doing at least 2 hours of research and homework.
Yeah, super quick example. So like, and I'm sure Terry has seen this at all the places he's worked at too. You get a lot of students who write, oh, and I can study abroad. Every college has study abroad. But I always give this example. Wake Forest has a house on the canal in Venice. Because everyone goes to junior year in Italy. It's the thing. But anyway, so but a better answer than I want to go to Wake because you have study abroad is I want to go to Wake because you have a house on the canal in Venice, and that's really cool for me. And I like Italian culture. I like Latin, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a way better answer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you both. One question that I've seen a couple times that we'll go over quickly just because it's a little bit off topic from personal statements, that you mentioned academics and extracurriculars are the most important part of your application. What are good grades and good extracurriculars? Is all A's except for 4 B's a good transcript?
I'll just answer this, and I think it's fairly simple, to be honest with you. Depends on the school, depends on the program. Mm-hmm. There are some institutions, many institutions that ask you for what major you'd like to apply when you come to their campus, and so they're going to look at your grades and your rigor relative to the program at which you're looking to apply, and then it's taken within a greater context of the school or institution. So, for example, finance at NYU is going to be much different from finance at Texas A&M. So
I'll tell you, so I stole this from one of my colleagues, so one of my other favorite college counseling phrases. So a lot of people come to consultants like Quad because they're looking for what's the secret sauce, what's the secret handshake, like, what do you do, what activities and all this stuff. And I stole this again from my colleague, and I always look at it like this way: you've got the great grades, you got the great test scores, you've got the great activities, that gets you, quote, a seat at the table. And then they say to you, when you're at the table, what do you have to say? And it's not uncommon, and Terry's experienced this, I'm sure, like it's not uncommon for like student we work with to get into super selective school A, but not B, but then also C, but waitlisted at D. Like that's very common. And so when you're looking at like, it's a famous question. Terry's gotten it, I'm sure, a million times. I've gotten it a million times. Is it better to get the B in the AP course or the A in the regular course? And the snotty admissions officer answer is it's better to get the A in the AP course. But that's also not admissions officers saying you have to take every AP. You have to get A's and everything. It's not. It's just, I always say, like, the advice we give to every student is exactly the same, but your answer is highly individualized. Take as rigorous as you can without overwhelming yourself. So I'll tell you, like, if you're advising me as a high school student, yeah, you put me in the higher history classes in foreign language and English. You can do that. You don't want me in calculus. You don't. You just don't. But that's not what I want to do. So that's the whole thing. So it's highly individualizable, as Terry was saying too. It also depends on your high school. Like, there's high schools that don't have APs, and that's fine. There's high schools that are IB. There's high schools that, and again, all different types, public, private, all over the country, rural, suburban. They're like, you take as rigorous as you can without overwhelming yourself.
It's a great answer, and I think applies to AP exams, classes overall. And I know it's a question we get all the time is what's better. It depends on the context, and it's not a great answer, but it's the best one we have.
Yep.
Let's see. So what has been more important in essays you've read, the little details or the larger events in someone's life?
It's a great question. I mean, I think for me, honestly, like, it's just talk to me, tell me something. Just honestly, like, I used to say this in my territory all the time when I was in admissions, like when I would recruit, I'd go like, I work for two entities. I work for my institution, but I also work for you. I represent you. I'm your representative. It's very much like and I've always said, I've never admitted anyone from my territories. I admit people from other people's territories. I go to bat for them. And so I say, like, tell me what to say.
All right. So we only have a couple minutes left. So let's want to power through a couple more questions here, if that's okay. So is mentioning school awards or something like that in your essay something you should do, or are they too insignificant?
Terry, I have an answer, but I'm really curious what you have to say.
Okay, what? I'm sorry, I don't know which one are we answering? I apologize.
Sorry, mentioning school awards in your essay. How do you feel about that? Are they too insignificant? Do they belong somewhere else?
I don't think there's any point in doing it. I would completely omit it. And there's a part in the Common App honors and awards that if it's really important, you should include it there. I don't really think it's necessary unless it's just ridiculously unique. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was. So there, let me give you an example. Like, so when I was in high school, I thought it was the most important thing in the world to get a National Honor Society. You have to get a National Honor Society. You can't get into whatever place. Like, that was like the most important thing. Like, Terry, like, back me up here. Do you know how many kids are in National Honor Society and have we ever gone, oh, well, he's not a National Honor Society, we can't take him? Like, that's never happened, right?
I don't even look at National Honor Society.
Yes, and so it's a good thing to do. Like, hey, you're a good kid and you do not, but it's not. See, I think one of the things I wish like people understood about this process is that it's not as fragile as they think. It's actually quite durable. So no, like, we've never been committing going like, well, they're not in this, well, we can't possibly take it. Like, that's never happened. Like, every student's got a different story. Every student's got a different thing. And what we try to do as consultants is say, like, what I always look at is I go, when a student comes to me, whoever they are, like, here's my family, here's my background, here's this, here's what I did, here's what I didn't do, here's the grades I got, what all that. And I go, how can I make that look as good as possible? So that's what we do.
Awesome. Another question here, do universities read at least one essay in all applications, or do other factors like GPA, extracurriculars, APs play a role in eliminating candidates before essays are read?
I mean, every application I've ever gotten, so Terry, and I don't know if you can spill this being at Purdue currently, but I can tell you as a former admissions officer, you've got some kids who come in and there's kind of three different paths, right? So you go, as my colleague said to me when he was explaining this to me, this kid built a rocket ship. Now, we don't have kids who are building rocket ships, but anyway, nonetheless, you go, well, we're probably going to take that kid. He looks pretty cool. So you go sign off, admit. So it doesn't go to committee, it goes to sign off, admit. And it goes to one of the higher ups. The higher up goes, yes, Dr. Nick, you're so right. He's wonderful. We're going to take him. That's one path. The other path is the students, even if they're, again, we work at highly selected places. Like, even if they're a really good student, we might go, they're not going to work for us. There's not. Like, and I would get this call from parents on, do you think they can't do the work? No, most of the kids could do the work. I mean, when I was at Vanderbilt, they were taking half. When I left, they were taking 20. Now they're at 5%. Like, I could do the work, but that was also 20 years ago, But anyway, all that to say, like, then you have the money middle, and those are who fall committee. And that's when you go, well, they're academically kind of there, we kind of like them, but we're not sure. And that's when a good essay can cure the sick, it can't raise the dead. And that's how it happens. So to answer the question, yes, they do read the applications. Yes, they do read the essays, but you also kind of go, this student's very strong, we don't really need to talk about them. This student's too weak, we don't need to talk about them, but it's that muddy middle. That's where the stuff comes up.
Great. Another question is some methods to address potentially failing a class, a year, talking about your academic performance and how that might have shifted during your personal statement, or is there somewhere else that should be put?
So there's a part of in the Common App called additional information, and it's really like a 650 word field you can use to address anything, really. I mean, honestly, and most students leave it blank, and that's fine. Many students get admitted, leave it blank. It's not a trick, it's not a trap, but they just kind of go, anything you want to let us know that you couldn't say elsewhere. And you can say, so just so you know, my high school places a limit on how many courses we take, or just so you know, our house got destroyed by a hurricane, or just so you know, my sister went through this illness, anything like that. And that's where you could do it. But like the essay is not a part to address, like, you know, like we always talk about like objective data, subjective data. So that's objective data. You know, I failed this class, but that's where you can put that in additional information. The essay is subjective. That's where you want to talk. You want to tell, like, and again, like I'll tell you, like, you know, as an officer, I go, tell me something I don't know from the rest of your app. Like, that's what I'm going for. Like, I know your transcript. I see it. I see your grades.
Thanks.
Yeah. That additional information section is where all that stuff can kind of go. But also don't feel compelled to put something there just to be able to write something there. Again, we're reading tens of thousands of apps, and in some cases upper tens into the hundreds of thousands of apps. We don't want to read another essay. So don't put your backup personal statement into the additional information. That can actually work against you.
Great. Let's pick one or two questions here. I know we're kind of at time, and then we'll wrap everything up. But if anyone is jumping off now, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have a recording of this sent over to you within the next few days, and it's been a pleasure to be able to talk to you about personal statements. What are some things that you think you mentioned, but people generally tend to not put enough emphasis on?
Yeah, that was the one I was going to say. We probably say. So personally, I just think it's being able to connect. Okay, you write this great story, but then connect it to kind of what's moving forward. So just writing 650 words on some of the good stuff that we talked about was good, but then including including some part of it towards their conclusion about, okay, so this stuff happened, or this is something that's really, really cool about you, or this is something unique, but what's next? Like, tell us about what's next. That's the thing that I would say students generally stop at.
Great.
Yep, absolutely. Like what I would say, like, no matter, like, if you're listening to this right now as a student or parent, and you know, you yourself or your child is like, I'm really interested in this, really interested in that. Awesome. What's next? What's next? How are you going to use my university to help you do that?
Awesome. Well, sorry that we didn't get to every question. I know there's a couple more left, and I think the general answer is put your spin on it, make it unique. You can write about anything, but want to make sure it's talking about you, coming from your perspective, and telling who you are, and again, what's next, where you're going and want to go. Terry, Dr. Nick, thank you both so much for being a part of this. This was great to work with you both. And everyone, again, thank you so much for joining us. I know we all had a lot of fun, and look out for some more webinars. Feel free to reach out if you have questions, want to schedule a consultation with us. We'd love to work with you. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon and evening.
All right. Thank you, Holly.
See you guys. Have a good one.